T minus 1 minute. T minus 50 seconds. T minus 40 seconds. T minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Own it, own it, own it, Kong. I own it. It did.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet. Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet.
Hello, hello. Welcome to Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet. And happy Monday and welcome to the WOW Superheroes Aftershow. Of course, I'm your girl, Stephanie Hardy, host and creator of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast, host and writer for Women's Wrestling Talk, and color commentator for the Belladonna Division, Battle Club Pro, and Black Girl Magic 2022. And thankfully, I am not alone. I am with my fantastic tag team partner, the illustrious Katrina Blake from In Cat We Trust. How are you, Kat?
I am good. I just got back from Florida yesterday, which is another one of my crazy trips I seem to keep having when I travel. But I was kind of being a little tired because I am tired from the trip. I'm good. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, hopefully, we'll talk more about your trip to Florida a little bit later, but I am glad to see that you did make it back home safe and sound, and that you were able to reconnect with your best friend and all of the things, right? So yeah, it's just yeah, like that's just really cool. So I'm glad that you are safe and sound, and we're here together to talk about WOW Superheroes and everything that went on in this episode. Because there was a lot of action, but then there was a lot of story as well. So, Kat, how did you feel about this episode as a whole?
It was good. It was definitely with a lot of action, and I feel like, especially with the upcoming week, that a lot of this did tie into what we're gonna get next week, which I thought was really good. And so it's a lot happening. And I like that we're seeing more continuations of certain stories.
Yeah, I like that too. And I just love the more of like the exploration that we're getting from a lot of the stories too. And just seeing people whom we've never really seen connect before. Like that's the part that I really liked about this episode as well. So we're gonna definitely get into it. And of course, if you are watching along with us live on Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube, thank you guys so much for watching. And of course, go crazy in the comments and tell us everything that you liked about this episode of WOW, or tell us who your favorite WOW superhero is and what more do you want to see from the girls as they continue to matriculate through the Women of Wrestling atmosphere. So this episode started with a pretty high-powered match in the form of BK Rhythm versus Kita Rush. Now, of course, BK Rhythm has sort of been going on like a, winning spree, whether it be in a tag team or even as a single star. She really has been going on a winning streak, and her and Kita Rush had a pretty good match here. Kita was looking to sort of bounce back from her being defeated by Chainsaw, who decided to choke her out last week and get disqualified. So she won technically, but didn't necessarily win in a decisive victory. So Kita was just looking to sort of bounce back. And of course, BK decided to be disrespectful with her one little rap verse that she did do this week, which is very different from every other rap that she's done since this iteration of WoW has started. She said, and I quote, "I won my last match, no need to waste time. I'ma finish this fast, y'all don't deserve a rhyme." And I was just like, dang. So we ain't gonna get a rap today. So you just decided to do like a little bit of one verse, one bar, and then after that, just leave us alone. Because you're so cocky that you're gonna beat this WoW OG and Keita Rush. But okay. It was a really good match though, because as you can see from this picture and the pictures, I'm more than sure Katrina will have, moving through as we talk about it. Keita immediately went for a MMA submission as the match got started, and she tried to basically roll her around and just, shake up BK Rhythm a whole lot. But what BK lacked in the quickness of Keita Rush, she made up for with her ground and pound and with a lot of her hard hits as well, with her forearms and fists and kicks as well. So it was a really good back and forth match between the two. There was one part where Keita Rush actually hit her Karana into a drop kick. But BK was able to battle back with lots of hard hits to Kita's abdomen with her knee and everything. And she even had a really innovative move that looked almost like a DDT, but she used her knees. So it was just really interesting how AJ pointed it out and called it a modified chin buster. So it was really good, and it was a great back and forth between the women. And anytime it looked like BK was about to submit, she always found her way back to the ropes and everything. So it was really good. But in the end, BK Rhythm wound up winning the match by hitting a DDT to Keita Rush after she tried to go for an aerial maneuver and slipped off of the ropes. So she took advantage of that, and BK won. And after she won, she cut a promo saying that she doesn't need a partner rather, and saying that she promises to deliver wins every week. So she's feeling quite confident. So Katrina, how are you feeling about the performance of BK Rhythm in this match, and how are you also feeling about Keita Rush as well?
I thought it was a good match. You know how I feel about BK Rhythms and raps. And so I was okay with her. I mean, it was a little bit disrespectful that she only gave her like a verse, but also because I don't particularly like her raps when she does this. I'm just like, okay, I'm okay with you not doing too much. But I guess as an opponent, you're like, oh, you feel like I'm not worth the effort to like give me an actual thing. And so I can see both sides of that. But it made me a little sad for Keita Rush only because she kind of, having to like deal with, having somebody you might be mentoring, and then the thing with Kandi Krush, and then we wasn't really sure about that, to kind of like trying to get that back in a good space, and then to lose your last two matches is unfortunate because it's like, is she? I'm hoping it's not like where she's questioning, you know, where she's at in WoW, because she's actually, she's a fantastic wrestler, and so it was unfortunate. But then with BK Rhythm is like okay, well you saw that she did a little bit more. I feel like with matches that we getting more and more over the weeks, you kind of seeing them kind of embrace more of the stuff that they can do. And so why became Riddle kind of irks me. I did like that you definitely saw her using more of the moves she has in her arsenal. And I thought that says more about Keita, that you felt like you had to use those moves with her because it maybe because she is a veteran, or maybe because she might have a different skill set. And so that was cool to see that she clearly had other moves that she's been using. And while she did take advantage, which is a smart thing to do, it's actually a veteran move to take advantage of a slip. It shows her growth as a from the beginning when we first got introduced to this character and WoW. And so like it was like I can kind of see like you kind of like I don't really like you, B, but I also see and I do appreciate that you can clearly see that there's some growth as far as what she's been using, and then as far as now utilizing different skills for different opponents. But then also you kind of feel sad for Keita Rush. You're like, oh man, you lost this match as well, and you already lost the one last week, and I'm sure that's a little bit of a blow to the the self-esteem a little bit. And so, but I do think it was a good matchup in regards. I do think that they both fought like valiantly. It's just in this regard, BK Rhythm happened to get the upper hand by using a moment that which again was a smart move to use the point. Like, okay, I'm gonna use this to my advantage. Get the win. How you get the win without cheating. And so she did. And so, it's like I can see both sides again because I feel for that. Also, like, okay, you're clearly using more, and I feel like she had to do it because it was Keita Rush. Like you have to use different, like you might have used with a different opponent. She used different moves, and I think that was smart. And so I like that there's been some growth that we've seen, and that that's something I feel like I've noticed with all of them as weeks has gone on. You can see growth for certain ones, or you can see that they're changing things up depending. And so that's always good to see. You don't always get to see that too much with women's wrestling, and it's nice to see that.
Yeah, it is good when you see someone sort of, bringing more of their arsenal to the forefront and, applying whatever knowledge that they have or kind of have, stuffed backwards in their mind to bring it to the forefront to meet the challenge of the person that they're facing. And BK Rhythm really did do that this time. And it's good to know that she's not out here just playing games and just being silly, just because she's a rapper. Like, she's taking her wrestling craft very seriously, and you do hate to see Kita Rush lose, but at the same time, at least I feel like even though she did try really hard, in a very hard fought match, at the very least, she can say that she did try her absolute best, in giving BK Rhythm a hard fight. And at least BK can say that she really did try hard and she did win. So it was a really good match. I did enjoy it, and it was a really great start to the episode. Now, of course, as the episode went on, we did get a little bit of a recap of what happened last week in their main event, where we had Leia Makoa going up against my mortal enemy, the WOW World Champion, Penelope Pink, and how that match ended with Penelope Pink, of course, retaining her title, and Leia Makoa getting attacked by the Fab Four, only for the Island Dynasty, that's the Tonga Twins, and Tiki Chamorro, to come to her defense and them basically having a brawl to end last week's episode, which led to the announcement of next week's main event, which will be the 8-woman tag team match between the Island Dynasty and the Fab Four. But in actuality, it's the Fab Five, because Lana Star is out there. So there might be some crazy shenanigans, as Katrina likes to say. So it's really an unfair match, but either way, it's going to be cool in terms of the action. It's going to, go forth, because those Island Dynasty women are fire, okay? They are going to give that Polynesian flavor in that match, to those women, because the Fab Four, of course, has just been running roughshod throughout the whole WOW, atmosphere, and they just been acting like, they run everything because they have all the gold, and then they have Vicky Lynn McCoy as their enforcer. So it's going to be nice to see a very amazing faction in the form of the Island Dynasty just step up to them and let them know that, look, you can't pick on us and you can't run all over us, like, because we'll knock you down. So it's going to be really, exciting to see that. So how are you feeling about next week's main event, Kat? I can't hear you.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I didn't know my bad. We've already been kind of like excited that we've been seeing that you have Dominance and the Tonga Twins, but then you also have Tika, who's kind of been like kind of brought in like a sister, and then you have somebody who's also kind of badass in Leia Makoa. And so I think this is going to be a really entertaining match. Honestly, I think it's going to be like, because at least 3 or 4 of the women from the Pacific Island like are really like hard hitting and tough. I feel like Tika's kind of like more high flying flair will be a nice complement to the other 3. But I think it's going to be a fantastic match. I'm actually really like looking forward to it next week.
Yeah, definitely. I'm really excited. And I hope the Fab Four does learn a little bit of a lesson. But you just never know. But either way, moving forward with the rest of the show after that little bit of an announcement, we had a backstage, well, not really a backstage segment, kind of like an off-site segment involving Kandi Krush, of course, training a client of hers at a boxing gym and stuff like that. And it was really cool to see her, training a man and training someone else when it comes to, boxing and stuff like that. But then there was a person, a familiar face, leaving the boxing gym in the form of Princess Aussie. And her and Kandi Krush, decided to catch up and everything and sort of talk about, a lot of stuff that they've been going through. And Princess Aussie was a little bit vulnerable in discussing the fact that she feels like she hasn't been, feeling as confident as she usually does feel, because every time she's had opportunity for the gold, in terms of the WOW World title or just any match in particular, she's just been on a losing streak. So she hasn't been feeling as confident in her abilities. But she says that she does box because it sort of reminds her of her roots and sort of where she started, which was, news to me because I had no clue that she actually used to box. So she was just like, yeah, boxing just sort of, brings me, back to earth and helps me to feel, like myself again. And Kandi, understood that, and then they also sort of bonded over their idea of being taken over by voodoo problems in the form of Siren the voodoo doll. And that was a really funny and cute part too. So because, they sort of understand what each other were going through, they bonded and said, hey, if you teach me how to box a little bit more and help me hone my boxing skills, and I'll help you hone your wrestling skills. So it was nice to see a sisterhood, form in that way from the things that they have in common and the things that are different as well. So, Ken, how did you feel about this segment in the sisterhood of Princess Aussie and Kandi Krush?
I thought it was good. You know, it's always nice when you like with the superheroes, we kind of learn a little bit more about them each week. And so this where we was aware of Kandi Krush like boxing background. I didn't know that about Princess Aussie. I was like, okay. And that's like a little bond right there. You get like little we have like our wrestling friends, and you have sometimes you make friends because of some other thing that you happen to like to do. And so it's nice to kind of see Kandi getting some more friends because, at one point it did seem like she was very alone, especially during the whole boxing glove situation. It felt like at times she was completely alone. And while she had people help, at some point, it's nice to kind of like, okay, maybe this person will actually have her back at some point where it's more consistent because they have that in common. And so it was cool to kind of learn that, but also like, okay, look, her making some more friends. Because I feel like sometimes she's kind of the lone person sometimes on the compared to the other superheroes where you kind of see them paired up with somebody or kind of in the stable, and she's kind of usually by herself. And so it was kind of nice to see that.
Yeah, it really was. And of course, we will see the benefits of that partnership a little bit later. we'll like later on in the episode, we did get to see the benefits of that friendship that is blossoming and blooming before our very eyes, and it really was nice to see. And it was just a nice little change of pace, because here lately we have, in the past few episodes, we've been getting lots of action, 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 action with a little bit of story thrown in there. So now it looks like we're getting double the action but also double the story too, and that's not something I'm mad about at all. So it's really cool. So the next match, speaking of which, was of course Kandi Krush versus Genesis, who wasn't alone. She came out with Exodus and Ice Cold of Exile. So it looks like Miss Ice Cold is still aligning herself with Exile, who are basically just trying to continue their dominance outside of Malia Hasaka's leadership. So this was really refreshing to see Kandi Krush fight someone else outside of the realm of the dark queens. So I was really excited to see that she was fighting Genesis, and it looked almost as if both of these women were somewhat evenly matched in their abilities, just a tad bit. Because of course you have Genesis, who is more of a wrestler and have more of her holds and stuff, as you see in this picture. But then if she wanted to hit you, with her hard fists and stuff like that, she could match up with Kandi Krush in that way too. But of course, when you come out with friends, you get to have the upper hand. And that's something that Genesis did utilize a lot. So there were reversal of arm locks, in the very beginning of the match. Kandi Krush actually had a chance to trip up Genesis, and then Kandi Krush set up for her kick, but then she was pushed away by Genesis, and then Kandi took advantage with more of her arm drags throughout this match. But then Genesis wound up taking advantage with um distracting the referee as well, which was a bigger issue that we have been discussing more and more each time, where the referee will get distracted, and then you'll have the other friends on the outside like Exodus and Ice Cold tripping up and trying to keep Kandi Krush from kicking on Genesis and stuff. And I was just like, bruh, Ben, they're playing the okey doke on you, and it's just happening in front of your face. And then they distracted him again and actually rubbed Kandi Krush's face after Genesis rubbed her face on the rope, and then they rubbed her face on the top rope again too. So it was just a lot of shenanigans taking place, but it was just really frustrating. But Kandi Krush actually wound up pulling out the win by hitting her with her crush punch 3 times, like 2 times in the ring, and then another time from the top rope. So Kandi Krush wound up winning this match, but she wound up getting attacked by the other two friends, Exodus and Ice Cold. And as she was getting attacked, Princess Aussie came to her defense, who we will see later on towards the end of the show. But she came to her defense, which means that this friendship is definitely a real thing. And then she got on the microphone and said, since you guys want to gang up on Kandi Krush, if y'all want to fight her, y'all got to come through me. So next week, I'm going to challenge you to a tag team match. I'm not sure if it's happening next week or the week afterwards, but either way, Exile versus Princess Aussie and Kandi Krush should be a pretty good match. And let me just say that Princess Aussie is just really gorgeous, and I'll never get tired of looking at her and her awesomeness because she's just so beautiful. But Katrina, how did you feel about this match? And how do you feel about Kandi Krush having a fresh coat of paint with this match in fighting Genesis?
It was nice. We were, like I said, we understood the reasoning behind it, and then with the LA Comic Con episode, and she like saying she was done to kind of fight them right after. It's like I don't know, like maybe we need to. So it's nice to kind of see that she's moved on to a new opponent, rather just kind of to also progress her story because she's now past the whole boxing gloves thing, and so I felt like this was a nice change of pace for her. But again, it was also nice to see that she had a friend in Princess Aussie who was able to kind of come in and be like, I got this. And I appreciated that because again, during that whole boxing glove situation, it seemed like she was really alone. And so to kind of see this time she didn't really have to wait for any help. The person just was like, we got each other, at least we have this in common. I got you. And I was like, you know what? I appreciated that. It's nice to kind of see this new friendship, but it was also nice to definitely see Kandi Krush not only pick up a win, but also kind of just have a new opponent because we were on the whole, and this is nothing to the ladies that, it's just because I felt like of all the storylines, this was one of the ones that kind of dragged a little bit longer than the others, that it was nice to kind of see her just have a new opponent, a new change of pace.
Yeah, that story was getting, no disrespect to those women at all, because we will see some of them later who she did face. Um, it's like that story was getting a little bit long in the tooth, I will say. So it was really nice to see Kandi fight Genesis. And considering Exile is still sort of finding their place, without Malia Hosaka, it was good to see them, actually fighting, even though they were being, devious throughout the entire match. It's just the fact that watching them and watching Genesis and more of what she could do in the ring was really cool too. Like it was amazing to see what she could do up against someone like Kandi Krush. So I did enjoy that match, and here again I am here for the sisterhood between Princess Aussie and Kandi Krush, and hopefully it is coming from a genuine place so their tag team can, continue to grow and fluctuate throughout the next few episodes of WOW. So that was really good. So after they talked more about the main event that's going to be taking place next week, we were finally able, well, not finally able, they announced that next week we will finally get a update on the status of the mother truckers and their truck being towed away by Samantha Smart, and figuring out what happened with them and if they were able to find their truck after it got truck napped, I guess you could say. So we will figure that out, and I'm really hoping that Big Rig Betty and Holly Swag didn't have to walk that far in order to get their truck back. And I know, no, they're probably going to make Samantha Smart suffer for that. Like, I know it for sure. So after that, we also got a little bit of an update the on the health of the Beast, who is of course trying to work her way back to us after getting attacked from behind by that mystery assailant who we still don't know who it is. I'm gonna need for them to give us some answers. But either way, we still don't know who attacked her. But of course, the last time we saw her, she was being encouraged by Jungle Girl, who is a former rival of hers in terms of the title and also outside of the title as well in the older iterations of WoW. So Jungle Girl was encouraging her in the gym and saying, look, if you're going to be the Beast, you need to train like the Beast. And it was like really insane to see her sort of just get buck with her and just tell her, look, you need to get, train like you usually train. Okay. Like, don't be afraid. And that's real because I know since I've had a situation where I kind of got in a car accident and I was afraid to walk on my foot at one point because I was injured. But my boyfriend, shout out to him, and my mom were telling me, like, you have to figure out, how you can't be scared to walk on it just because it hurts. You have to continue to do the work in order to get back to normal. And that's what the Beast has to do. So we saw her working out, lifting weights, rehabbing her leg, doing all the things that we know that the Beast can do in terms of that, and rehabbing and getting herself back to normal. And Jungle Girl basically said that every champion deserves the opportunity to fight as a champion. And I might not, like her, but I do respect her. And so that was really cool too. Speaking of more sisterhood happening in that way, it was just really good to see Jungle Girl, willing the Beast back, which means that Miss Ma'am, who's holding the WOW World title, might have to watch out. So Katrina, how did you feel about this segment and watching the health update of the Beast and watching her work out to come back to us?
It was nice. So, we was all sad when she kind of somebody so dominant to go down, and it wasn't because she lost. It was because of an injury. And I feel like that's sometimes one of the worst ways to lose a belt, is because you didn't lose it because you lost a match, just because you just can't defend it. And so that's unfortunate because, she was super tough. And there were so many matches we were kind of wanting to see, just to see who was going to take the title from her. And to think of now, even how would Penelope have fared against the Beast, And so those kind of things, it's I'm glad to see that she's rehabbing and coming back. I am actually excited for that because I'm a fan. It's good she's doing well. I do hope at some point, though, we do find out who was responsible for all that extra, because we still do not know. And I'm wondering if it's somebody she's close to. Is it one of the heels, or if it's somebody she's actually kind of close to, and it's okay, maybe some jealousy involved if it's one of those type of situations. And so it'd be nice to kind of figure that out, I guess, when they tell us. But it was good to see that she's doing better, and I can't wait for her to come back.
Yeah, I can't wait for her to come back either, because it's just Miss Ma'am held the title for such a long time, even though you do count in, when you count in the pandemic of it all. With that, she still held on to the title for a while. And so to see her having to give it up due to somebody being malicious and mean and injuring her was just really devastating. So I can't wait for her to come back and try to win the title that she never lost. Because I do seriously want to know, how will Penelope Pink, fare against someone as imposing as the Beast, and how does Jungle Girl play into that? Because as it stands right now, we haven't seen Jungle Girl, in the ring with in-ring action in this iteration of WOW. It's we've learned about her history before, but we haven't seen her fight. Will she want a piece of the pie in terms of the title? Or is she just here as a friend to help her get back to normal? I wonder what that's going to entail. But either way, it was a really good segment and I appreciated it. So speaking of more segments, we move forward into the Team Darkness of it all, and we see Siren the Voodoo Doll and Holidead sort of talking about a lot of how they've been losing lately, of course, not only at the hands of Kandi Krush, but so many other people as well. And they were talking about, so people really think we're weak and that, and we're defenseless. And so Siren pulled a card, and the card had roller skates on them, which basically meant that the next victim that they were going to come for was Foxxy Fierce, who they will be, fighting later on in the episode. So they basically said that we get to teach these unruly souls whatever. And I was just oh my God, this is okay. Well, this is creepy. But either way, they are looking to teach some of the women of WOW a lesson and looking to just reestablish their dominance as Team Darkness. So that was really interesting leading into their next match. But before we go into talking about the rest of the episode, we have to pay a couple of bills. So of course, we will be right back.
Hey peeps, TK Trinidad here, boss lady of Women's Wrestling Talk. And I want to say thank you so much for watching, because you've got millions of options. Plus, you don't have to worry about sharing your password to check us out. But while you're here, hopefully you know we have so many more shows to watch, like Turnbuckle Glam, Raw post-show, WOW post-show, AEW Dynamite post-show, Women's Wrestling Army post-show, NXT post-show, Impact Wrestling post-show, AEW Rampage and SmackDown Live post-show, On the Scroll, ROH post-show, WWT Live, plus all of our interviews with the hottest women's wrestlers in the game. Make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. Check out our website at www.talkpod.com and follow us on all social media platforms at www.talkpod, and make sure to spread the word. That means send this to the group chat. Yes, even the person with the green bubble. Thanks again so much for watching Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet. Ciao for now.
All right, and shout out to our CEO, TK Trinidad, our fabulous leader, who continues to push the envelope and trust us to push the envelope with her baby every single week with all of the shows that we have, of course, happening every day. Of course, continue to support the brand, love on the brand, and just share, and subscribe to everything that Women's Wrestling Talk is doing, because we are popping off, yo. So shout out to her and her vision for the brand and for everything that she has done for us and for women's wrestling as a whole. So moving into the next match, we have Siren the Voodoo Doll and Holidead versus Chantilly, Chella, and Foxxy Fierce. And they were calling Chantilly and Foxxy Fierce the dancing queens because, of course, they did do a lot of dancing in this match. And also with their entrance as well. But the funniest part about their entrance was the fact that, of course, they both wear capes and coats. But normally Chantilly Chella will throw out her cape to David McLean, and he didn't get either one of them, and he was very devastated by that. But AJ was like, yeah, it's nice for a change, just leave them alone. And I was just like, dang, AJ, party pooper pants maybe. So yeah, that was pretty funny. And then also another interesting tidbit with this match was the fact that Foxxy Fierce's sister was in the audience. And David McLean talked about this, and she said, and he also mentioned that Foxxy Fierce's sister is a Division I athlete, I believe, in volleyball, they said. So I thought that was really cool and really interesting. So shout out to Foxxy Fierce's sister. Who low-key looked like she wanted to get in on some of the action, because as Holidead and Siren the Voodoo Doll made their entrance, Holidead kind of got up in her face a little bit. And I was just like, no, you ain't finna get up in Foxxy Fierce's sister's face like that. That was really interesting for me. It was just really interesting for me, but I just know it couldn't have been my sister. Shout out to Jackie. It would have been over with. It would have been over with, okay? It would have been like a whole situation, and all the refs would have had to come out, and it just would have been hilarious. So, as something interesting that happened was at the beginning of this match, as Siren and Holidead sort of lifted up their hands for a lockup, Chantilly and Foxxy were dancing with each other and just kind of caught them off guard. So they then kicked them as a point of like distraction, like, just because, you know, we're out here dancing don't mean you got to take us, you know, lightly. They hit a double drop kick, and then they tripped them up into a drop kick. And I will say, throughout the entirety of this match, it seemed like Chantilly and Foxxy went back to the drawing board and worked on their chemistry, because they were operating a whole lot smoother than the first time we saw them tag together. Like, it was almost like Holidead and Siren were just had a little bit of a struggle trying to catch up with them. And everything they were doing, I was just like, wow. And it wasn't until Holidead and Siren hit a senton and a power slam where things started to change a whole lot. And then Holidead actually threw Foxxy Fierce out of the ring and stomped on her chest in front of her sister. Like, that was really disrespectful. But as you can see here, Foxxy Fierce wasn't taking any of that disrespect lying down, hitting that kick to her and all of the above, and Chantilly Chella trying to get involved on behalf of her partner. But either way, the power of Holidead and the quickness of Siren wound up taking full advantage of them. And after Foxxy Fierce got thrown out, Siren covered up Chantilly Chella for the 1-2-3, and they got the win that they desperately needed, I should say, because here lately they have been sustaining multiple losses when it came to Kandi Krush and so many other people. And Holidead actually just recently lost a match against someone. So it was just kind of like they desperately needed this match to reassert their dark dominance. So this was a really good match here, but it was still mad disrespectful because Holiday really did not care about the fact that Foxy's sister was out there. She was like, look, I will destroy your sister right in front of you. I don't care. And then on commentary, they were talking about the possibility of the sister possibly joining the WOW roster. And I'm just like, well, if y'all want to recruit her, go ahead. But either way, this match was pretty good in terms of tag team chemistry and tag team work. But Holidead and Siren wound up winning. So, and it was also really refreshing to see Siren in the ring because we usually see her being a manager. So seeing her in the ring was pretty refreshing, for a change. But Katrina, how did you feel about this match?
I thought it was really good. It was good tag team action, and why I do love, Foxy and Chantilly Chella. I think they complement each other very well. It was nice to kind of see because not that they didn't deserve to lose, some of the matches after what they did to Kandi Krush, but also it was like, okay, you guys are supposed to be pretty dominant. It's kind of weird that you're not winning a little bit more. And so it's like kind of like once again like one of those like you kind of see like you're glad that they won. It was nice to see Siren because we don't see her as much, and then we wound up having one of the other members of the main event, and so it was just kind of nice to kind of see, okay, you guys are kind of doing your thing and you're not focused on Kandi Krush anymore too much. Like you guys clearly moved on. But I do like Foxy Fierce and Chantilly together. I just, I feel like it was one of those situations like you kind of don't want them to lose, but then you understand in this situation while like somebody had to win. You know what I mean? It's like one of those kind of things because it's like if they had taken quite a few L's recently, but also it was kind of, I guess, if you're moving away from the Kandi Krush storyline, then it was a nice way to kind of reset it by having them win this match. And so I thought it was really good tag team work. And while I was like, only because you kind of like the other two women as well, it also, I thought this is a nice way to kind of reset them going forward to whatever the next feuds are.
Yeah, it was a good reset for them to whatever's next. But I actually wouldn't mind seeing them, fight again. Like if there's like a rematch, then I wouldn't mind seeing Chantilly Chella and Foxy Fierce in a rematch with them because I really felt like they really could have won because I felt like rhythm wise and chemistry wise, they were a little bit better, whereas Siren and Holiday were a bit disjointed. To me. So if they decided to like have a rematch, and I wouldn't be opposed to that either. Um so yeah, I agree with everything you said, but I do want a little bit of a rematch between those two. But when it comes to WoW, you never really know exactly what you're gonna get. They do announce matches ahead of time, but then there are some matches that you know about the night of. So you just never know what exactly you're going to get. But either way, if they do have another tag team match, I wouldn't be opposed to it. But of course, Siren the Voodoo Doll and Holiday did come out with the win here. So there is that. So moving to our main event, which low-key scared me the first time they announced it. I was just like, oh my God, really? We have Chainsaw with her little sister Angelica Dante versus Princess Aussie, who we saw earlier, in the episode with her segment with Kandi Krush, and also her coming to the defense of Kandi Krush. I'm dropping things back here. Shout out to my notes on the floor. So this match was pretty okay for the most part. I liked it because you had Princess Aussie adapting to the situation of having to face someone like Chainsaw, who is really big and scary and will knock you down and choke you out. But Princess Aussie was being really fast in the beginning of the match, of course, ducking and dodging and dipping and dodging her various attacks, and then hitting her with kicks and trying to climb up on her and choke her out a couple of times as well. And then it got really vicious because there was one point where Chainsaw did get the upper hand, and she started trying to submit not trying to submit Princess Aussie, and was ripping at different facial parts, like ripping at her ear, then ripping at her nose and her mouth. And it was almost like Chainsaw was trying to make Princess Aussie the next face on her face jacket. Like it was really kind of rough. It was almost something that you would expect from 90s Kane or something like that. It was really gruesome at one point. But Princess Aussie did fight back with a number of kicks and hitting her cutter from down under. And this is where you kind of thought she was gonna have the upper hand, but Angelica Dante interfered and stopped her from climbing up on the top rope, and then she got down. Um well, she got down, then she climbed back up. And then Princess Aussie got caught with chainsaw and her illegal chokehold, and she choked her out, causing her to get disqualified, which means that Princess Aussie wound up winning the match via DQ. But after it happened, she left the ring and rolled out of the ring afterward. And Kandi Krush came to check on her, which kept the continuity going with their partnership and their friendship as it continues to blossom. And Chainsaw was just looking dominant, even though she did not win, and Angelica Dante was egging her on the entire time. And that's basically where WoW ended. That's where WoW ended in terms of that episode. So Katrina, how do you feel about Chainsaw's approach to these matches? It seems like she doesn't care whether or not she gets a victory or a defeat. She just wants to destroy people. Is that okay?
I think that she was always supposed, like, we knew when we first kind of saw, we know what we expect from Holidead, and then Siren was kind of there, kind of in the background. I feel like Chainsaw's like the opposing force. Like, I feel like there's certain groups, like I said before with the Fab Four with Vicky Lynn, like how she's the one that's kind of enforcing. And I feel like in this group, it's Chainsaw. Like, it's not, and B, that they already kind of on the weird, a little bit spooky side. Her being like just whatever, just to kind of punish. You have a name like Chainsaw, and even with the gear sometimes is a bit like creepy. That her being like vicious like this actually fits her to me because of that. I think she's the enforcer of the group. I think she's the most dominant one. And then, and while the sister, not that she was protecting her sister, because her sister kind of started putting herself in these situations. And so it's not like, but you kind of want to like show up with your siblings, like, this is what I can do. Or if I need to like kind of step in for you, this is what I can do. And I feel like this is more of one of those situations where she's just letting, like, I don't think it was concerned about the win, and mostly just kind of proving that this is who she is as a wrestler, but she's dominant and she'll do whatever she needs to do if it causes pain. And I feel like, again, with a name like Chainsaw, you know, you're not necessarily looking to be nice, or everything. I feel like certain women here on the superheroes, they have names like, Wrecking Ball. I mean, you just kind of there to wreck up stuff and leave. And so I feel like in this situation, you have a name like Chainsaw and you're being, again, a bit gory with even with the gear. It made sense for her to be a bit more violent. And that, again, she clearly wasn't concerned. She did the choke. She wasn't concerned. It was just, I think, to prove a point that of the group, in your main eventing, that maybe she's the one to kind of watch out for in the group. Like, there's, you always kind of question who's the person that might be of a group, who might be the more. And I feel like in this sense, when it comes to dominance, she is. And so I think that's what she was trying to kind of show, because she had the main event. I think it was just kind of showcasing that she can be, violent if she needs to be. She can be, cruel if she needs to be, if it proves the point of where she is to everybody else on that roster. So that, I think that's what she was trying to do. And she did it. I mean, not that Princess Aussie should have to deal with all of that, but I think if you're trying to put a precedent of like, this is what you're going to expect fighting me, it made sense to me. And so, Princess got the win because of the disqualification, but I don't think it's going to be over this suit, because to do all of that and then think you just go off about your merry way. I'm like, I don't know if this is going to be the end of that. That's a lot to do. And I'm sure Princess Aussie kind of wants to kind of get a little bit payback after all that. It's good to have that happen. And then you're sitting here doing an illegal chokehold. It's like, I mean, I don't know if I would let that slide, if that was me. And so I feel like it's not necessarily over, but I think Chainsaw was kind of just letting people know, this is where it is for me. This is what I am.
But yeah, if that's the case, then Chainsaw would definitely have like a big beating coming to her, because Princess Aussie is the second victim of that. Because last week it was Kira Rush. Like, for all we know, maybe next week or the week after that, she could like pile up her list of people that she hits an illegal choke on, and then they'll all like gang up on her and then make her, run away, like for all we know. So it's just interesting. And then I like how you mentioned how Chainsaw is a person that's not interested in just defeats and and stuff like that, because she has like an actual chainsaw tattooed on her leg, and they did make reference to that in the episode. So this woman is only hell bent on destruction. Like, she doesn't care about wins or losses or whatever. Like, she just wants to destroy people. And I think that's really interesting. And um it's so funny you mentioned her as an enforcer to Holidead and Siren. And then you also have Angelica Dante there too. Do you believe they could possibly challenge the Fab Four later on?
They could. I mean, you got like Chainsaw can probably take on Vicky Lynn, and it won't be easy. Like, it won't be something that Vicky Lynn can just kind of brush through quickly. I feel like, if you need somebody, it's very possible, that it could be. I feel like it's possible. You got, and they're also a little bit out of the norm for what the Fab Four is. They're like money, prettiness, being a little bit bougie, and they're not really for that. I feel like it would be definitely a complementary styles if they were to face off against each other.
Yeah, I just feel like that would just be a fun um juxtaposition, like juxtaposition of the opposites there. It's like you have this dark and creepy voodoo thing, and then you also have like the Fab Four, who's all about, their fabulousness and cuteness and, wearing labels and driving Mercedes and all that other stuff. And it's just like, that would just be a really different type of atmosphere. It would, like, I would love that. I would just love to see what that's like. But you just never know in the world of WoW. You never know how they're going to shake things up and what you're going to get. So I am really excited about where everything is going to go with the rest of the show. But that was where the episode ended. So, of course, while we'll be back next Saturday or whatever day it comes on for you, of course, if you support and love the action of WoW Women of Wrestling, please go on wowe.com and figure out where it comes on for you in the country. It comes on different times for different people. Just like I always say, in Alabama, it comes on at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time on Saturdays, of course, barring there isn't any sports playing before it or after it that will preempt it or post-empt it, because God knows we are serious about our sports. So so it's just, just catch it when you can, or even if you record it later and watch it later, you can catch it there. And then sometimes they even upload full episodes on to their YouTube channel. And then you can also check out reruns on Pluto TV as well as their documentaries that they have too. You can check that out on Pluto TV for free as well too. So if you support WoW Women of Wrestling, continue to support them and watch them everywhere you can find them. And of course, you'll be back with us on next Monday as we recap the entire new episode of WoW Superheroes, and just we'll continue to talk about it and support it and continue to create content and do interviews with the women as long as we possibly can, and just continue to support this brand and women's wrestling as a whole. So, Katrina, thank you so much for joining me as always, my tag team sister. Just tell everybody where they can find and follow you and what you've got going on.
I am on most social media platforms on Cat We Trust, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Ease3. I just dropped my interview because I totally slacked, guys. It's just been a really busy couple of weeks with Erica Damia, a little play off My Hero Academia. If you're an anime fan, super awesome young wrestler kind of rising in the wrestling world, hoping to get that dream Billy Starks match. And so it was really fun interview. I enjoyed that. So that is on my channel. I will be finally posting the Chicago panel. It's been a crazy couple of weeks with travel and everything. And so you can check that out as far as, and then you guys, of course, can catch me here on Mondays and on Thursdays doing an NXT show, and on Mondays doing the WoW show with my lovely co-host Stephanie. So that's where you where you guys can find me.
Awesome sauce. And I can't wait to see that panel and everything that happened with that, because of course we were separated by WrestleMania, but it's okay. It's okay. I was there in spirit, and I can't wait to see, all your new content, because I know it's going to be awesome. and all of the above. But of course, you can follow me, your girl Stephanie Hardy, on Instagram and Twitter at Queen Steph Hardy. Listen to the Hardy Wrestling Podcast everywhere you get your podcast audio, and also watch the episodes on YouTube on the YouTube channel, and subscribe on the Hardy Wrestling Podcast, and just continue to support the movement and the show. I found out today that the Hardy Wrestling Podcast has been nominated for Bama Podcast of the Year again, for the second year in a row for the Alabama Music Awards, and I'm really grateful for that. So if you see me post a link, well, actually you can vote for it with the link in all of my bios, linktree.com/Queen Steph Hardy. Vote for me there so I can possibly win this award. Like, I was nominated last year, and it was a big honor to be nominated and to be at my first award show in that way. Didn't get the win, but it was still cool to be there. So please vote for your girl, because yeah. And also check out my newest episode of Hardy Wrestling Podcast Extra, where I talk about the Sakura Genesis match between Mercedes Moné, Azumi, and Hazuki for the IWGP Women's title. That match was fire. So if you want to hear me talk about it, please go on the YouTube channel and listen to me wax poetic about that match and the journey of Miss Mercedes Moné as she matriculates through Japan. So yeah, and also I want to say that my favorite women's match so far this week has been Jordynne Grace versus Deonna Purrazzo on Impact. Congratulations to Deonna for being a Knockouts champion again, and also holding a title right next to her husband, Steve Maclin.
Yes.
That is so
And
cute.
no Jordan shade, Jordan, you're great, but Deonna's my girl. That's my girl.
Yes, I love Jordynne so much. Jordynne did such a good job. She did such a good job.
Also, props to her, because I believe she just won not too long ago a bodybuilding. I think she was first place in.
Yes.
And so, you're super awesome, amazing. It's just, you think of Deonna and she was like 3 and 4 belts holding. I'm just like, well, you know what? She had like 3 belts at one time. Let's bring it back. That's all. I'm a fan of them both. I think I got to speak to them both the same time, the same day, and I did little interviews. And so I love you both, but it was a fantastic match. And it is kind of cool to kind of be repping with your husband. I think that's always really sweet. It's like, oh, me being the sap that I am, I was like, this is nice, like tears. So that's super awesome matchup. I was really happy about, it was great.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. So, of course, this is Women's Wrestling Talk. And, of course, if you want to support us and this brand, like TK Trinidad said in the commercial, follow us on Instagram and Twitter at WWTalkPod. Check out our website at www.talkpod.com for all the latest news, articles, merchandise, and interviews involving all the hottest women's wrestling stars. And just continue to support the brand and love on us and follow us. Like, share, subscribe on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook as well. And just continue to support the movement. Share any videos you see us doing. Just continue to support us, because we're making moves out here. We are the Avengers of women's wrestling. And as long as women's wrestling continues to thrive, we will continue to talk about it. And even in the moments where life seems hard when it comes to women's wrestling, we're going to still talk about it, because we are here, okay? We are the vibe. So, of course, this is Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet. And until next time, bye, y'all.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet. Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet.